Welcome to the Not Old Better Show, the show covering all things health, wellness, culture, and more. The show for all of us who aren't old, we're better. Each week, we'll interview superstars, experts, and ordinary people doing extraordinary things, all related to this wonderful experience of getting better, not older. Now, here's your host, the award-winning Paul Vogelzang.
Welcome to the Not Old Better Show on radio and podcast. I'm Paul Vogelzang. Those of us over age 55, over age 60, I'm over age 65. All of us in this age span, we're thinking about all of this stuff. So what if growing older wasn't just about adding years, but about stepping into wisdom, influence, and purpose? I think we've got the guest for you today. What if instead of fading into the background, we embraced a new role, a role of guidance, leadership, and transformation? Today, we're speaking with someone who has dedicated his life to redefining what it truly means to age. Dr. Marc B. Cooper is a coach, author, and thought leader who challenges the idea that aging is simply about preservation. It's not. Instead, Marc Cooper asks us to consider, are we merely older or are we evolving into elder? Important distinction, because there is a difference. Older is resignation. Elder is possibility. Older is retreat. Elder is engagement. Older is a conclusion. Elder is a beginning. I love all of that. And I think it's so important to embrace Dr. Cooper's work, including his book, Older to Elder, The Thinking and Being of a Contemporary Elder. Dr. Cooper will lay out for us today this clear, compelling path for those of us 60 and beyond who refuse to be sidelined by outdated expectations. Instead, Dr. Cooper encourages us to step forward as storytellers, mentors, and wisdom keepers for the generations that follow. I think this is a wonderful role for us. In our conversation today with Dr. Cooper, we're going to explore how to embrace this powerful transition. What does it take to move from simply aging to becoming a true elder? How do we overcome ageism and societal doubts? Boy, those are biggies. Most importantly, though, how can we shape the legacy we leave behind? Dr. Marc Cooper, joining us today, has coached, written, and traveled the world sharing these insights today. We're honored to have him with us. So let's get started. I'm your host, Paul Vogelzang. This is the Not Old Better Show on radio and podcast. Let's just welcome Dr. Marc Cooper. Dr. Marc Cooper, welcome to the program.
Happy to be here.
I'm looking forward to this conversation because I think it's one that certainly I missed as a distinction between these two words that you talk about quite a bit, older and elder. And you really draw this very profound distinction between the two. You reference this idea that just by getting older, we don't necessarily become an elder. Why is distinction important?
Thank you for the question.
Is that a long one?
It's a really good one. Let's say the way older is in our culture, older with beginning with an O, you're an object, and then objects attract adjectives. So when someone uses the word older, they have all of what it means: obsolete, unimportant. You can go down the entire list of how ageism exists in our world. You could say older is based on the phenomenon of a thing. It's got characteristics, it's got qualities, and is culturally designed not to be very healthy. And we all know that. And what I think you're doing, and many others, which is really needs to be acknowledged, is improving the quality of that thing so that life is better for it. That life is better for that. You want to make them better. But it's, from my viewpoint, better of something that's already in existence and just making it better. That's older. And I think it's needed. Elder is different. Elder is not a thing. So that makes it very difficult to talk about. Mm-hmm. But you're an elder. Your history is perfect. Attitude is great. You have a certain quality and excitement about who you're being. So it's an existential place. It's a being place. As in, I'm older and I'm an elder. And the elder is a being in the world, not commanded by the cultural conversations and commandments about getting older. I don't abide by those, and I live by those, and there's a difference. And so elder is a way of being where I can be in life and all that's going on with a pretty good attitude and a kind of observation about it, as opposed to being of it. I'm in it. I'm more of in the stands than on the field. So distance to life and yourself, that for me, it's pretty humorous.
Yeah, I've enjoyed your sense of humor. I'm looking forward to more of that in our conversation today, too. I really feel as though as I've aged and in talking to you and the research of you, that the word that keeps coming to me is that it's transformative and that it isn't just simply a stage. We always hear of this idea. Yeah. Tell us why that's significant.
No, that's very good. That's very well said. It's a state change. Mm-hmm. So if you take a look from a ontologic viewpoint, and I don't mean to be hoopy-doopy about this, I have no idea the word, but if I look at who I am as older, and it's formed and it's caged is a better word by the culture that we're in. For example, the greatest cause of suffering in growing old is isolation, and also the things that they say about who you are now that you're old is determining how you're behaving in the world. So you isolate yourself. We don't have the capacity for many to go out and generate connections that would reduce and even eliminate that isolation. It's not going to happen to us. We have to make it happen for us. That's a responsibility that many older people do not want to take. There's a kind of sense of entitlement too. I worked my ass off and it was really good and I paid all my taxes and, now do it to me. One thing about elder is you live in the real reality. You don't live in this fantasy that something's going to happen. Here it is. But can you be responsible for it as opposed to complain about it? Can you do something for yourself that will change that or change you so it isn't the way it appears to you? And that's what you mean by transformation. It's a state change. Was this before and now I'm this now.
Mm-hmm. It's a choice, too. We're making this choice to step into this.
Absolutely. But underneath the choice is a consideration, which means I have the ability to be and take action that's inconsistent with where I normally go. You're able to recognize that moment when you can have that choice. So the condition, I think, that differs elders from older is they're conscious. Oh, here I am again, making the same choice over again, but just older. As opposed to, no, I can go over here and go beyond what I thought I was or could be.
Many in our audience are retired or approaching retirement. What steps would you recommend that we all begin taking as we approach that place?
At the edge?
This choice.
Yeah, the edge? Oh my God, I'm here.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I don't want to. A couple things. I think I have a little program that I do for corporate, which is the parting program, where the retired people can't wait to retire, but they're already out the door. So their mindset is not on anything but getting out the door and looking for their feet in the sand and sun on their back and all that good things. And then the people in the corporate structure can't wait till they go because the young people want to, they can and do it better. And you're just in the way. So they're pushing you towards the exit door. No one plans to do something beyond what they have always done. They just want to get away from what they've always done. But there's this future that is undefined that they think they not or will be less exhausted and more free. My experience, and again, is somewhat limited in case studies, is about 18 months out after the grandkids and the cruises and go see Paris and what all that is for you. And God bless, go do it. Go do it. But then people who have been in life with a purpose for the last 60 years now don't have a purpose. And some try to go backward to find a purpose inside of context and milieu of what was all happening when they were younger, and they're unsuccessful at doing that. What is available to them is to examine and explore what is their higher purpose, which is different than conventional purpose. And that, by the distinction between older and elder, is older has a default future and elder has a created future. They're not following the rules of the culture about how one should age.
Mm-hmm. Your own career has been very impressive. You are a business founder. You founded the Mastery Company. You also are responsible for the Contemporary Elder Institute, among many other things, being an author of a number of books. And we're going to talk about that in just a moment. I wanted to ask you a broad question about your own journey to eldership. What was it throughout your travels that brought you to this point to focus on this concept of elder versus older?
I'm going to speak as an elder.
Yep.
Okay. The future lives in other people speaking. So one might say what I did is I learned how to listen. And there it was. And it's as simple as that. We can't hear when we're running our own show, when we're interfering with what life's trying to tell us. I think an elder has some way of expanding their way of hearing to what is the truth about life and themselves, which ultimately gives them a freedom to hear the higher purpose. Don't you find yourself with more ease, freedom, and grace than you had when you were back then?
Most definitely. I suppose I'm less worried about what other people think. I feel like I do want to give back. I feel like there's some choices I made as a young professional that if I could go back and make those choices differently, I would. And so now I have an opportunity to do that.
Right. And I don't know if you could have made different choices because you made the choices you had to make and learned your lessons you learned your lessons. It's like, oh, man, I'm not doing that again. And then you do it again. And it's perfect. Yeah, it's okay.
Our guest, of course, is Dr. Marc Cooper, author, business founder, written 13 books, and they all get great reviews too. Dr. Cooper, one is Older to Elder, The Thinking and Being of a Contemporary Elder. Of course, one title is The Elder, and then there's a third edition of Source, The Genius of Success in Business and Life. These are all fantastic titles, and as I say, they get great reviews. It's such a pleasure to be talking with you. You've logged over 1 million air miles, and so you have been all over the world. What is it about this spirit of elder that you take with you to these many places? How would somebody recognize that in you?
Wow. Wisdom lives inside. Knowledge lives outside. So we live in a knowledge society, but what really impacts the heart and the being is being around an elder. If you've ever been with an elder, there's something special about them. What is that specialness? I think the work that I wanted them committed to doing, and really the purpose of the book, was, okay, if we had elders in the world sitting at the table where decisions are made, the world would not look the way it looks. Simple as that. So there is a barrier to having collapsed elder to older. So an elder occurs for people as just some old person, and there's no listening for what the wisdom is that they have to contribute. You can bitch about it all you want as an older person, or you can get out and do something about it. Elders are able to generate a way of being at the table, invited to the table, and speaking at the table that influences how people talk to each other and how they see the future. And that's the purpose of an elder.
We do hear a lot of bitching between generations, and particularly in the workplace, whether it's the millennials bitching at the boomers or the boomers having this entitlement attitude. You talk a lot about the importance of elders guiding the younger generations. And in this fast-paced work world that we're all living in, how is it that elders can meaningfully connect with younger groups, especially when ageism is present in most workplaces? And can multi-generational workplaces even succeed?
Probably not because of AI, but that's a whole world that we don't need to get into about that. Number one, when an elder's present, there's a sense of safety around because they're not after anything. They know they're not going to be a basketball star. Their ego is really minimized by the time they get to be an elder. It's not running the show. What they're doing is observing in a way that allows people to be more authentic with themselves. And authenticity is common all through the thread of humanity. When that is spoken, when that is present, when authenticity is rich and in part of the room, no matter what generation they're in, there's a relationship that occurs that brings up something more compassionate and respectful and highly regarded. And the listening shifts in the room and people are heard now. The thing an elder brings is that to the table to be able to have people open up their humanity to each other.
You say here that storytelling and legacy are key themes. especially when elders are in the room sharing this wealth of experience that they've had. How do we do that better? How do we tap into some of that storytelling capability and apply it? Because you get to be 68 like me, and I got a bunch of stories.
Yeah, you do. And one of my colleagues has a course called Before I Go, and what he's doing in the course is to write your story and memorialize them in a way that can be passed on from generations. What's missing is the capacity for elders to be heard and the barriers that need to be disassembled for that conversation to occur. There are things that are being done in our world, in our country, in our neighborhoods that have no perspective about what future they're causing. And an elder brings a long-term future, but they're able to ask the hard questions, even the confronting questions, in a way that doesn't threaten. And when you have that capacity, that allows people to kind of look from other perspectives. So elders bring a space. Tutu and his whole reconciliation piece, that was one of my models. It was like, wow, how do you do that? That's an elder in action.
You also make this interesting distinction insofar as you describe a couple words. One is older is resignation, while elder is possibility.
Exactly.
How do you encourage, especially in these times when hope is taking a back seat in many instances? We are isolated, certainly in my age group. How can we be open to new possibilities as an elder?
Possibility isn't external. Possibility is internal. There's no depth to this well if you spend time understanding yourself, because in doing that, you understand humanity. And then you're able to make a difference in the conversations that you're having with other people. So it's from one-on-one to one-on 360 billion people. It doesn't really matter. So I think the work on possibility is, who am I? What's the possibility of me? What's the possibility of me as an elder in terms of what I could do in the world? The tradition of elders, going back a long way, is about healing people and healing the world and repairing the world. Where can I start? How do I get people to listen to me? You work from a higher purpose. The way you relate to the issues out there that you feel are making you a victim and are hopeless, that whole sense gets really small because your higher purpose gets really big. And now you go, whoa, they'll do what they do. One of the things about elders is there's a lot of Buddhist concepts that are in there, and one is impermanence. We know as elders, nothing lasts. This government won't last. So we have this long-term view, but we only have ourselves for a little while longer. What's the possibility of that? How do I get that to a higher plane of consciousness, awareness, love, appreciation, grace, peace? How do I, me, not them? I think that's where the possibility lives.
One of the things that I read about you too is you often ask what a conversation might look like between any of us, or you perhaps, and Margaret Mead or Albert Einstein sitting on a park bench. What is it about the qualities of those conversations that help us understand what it means to become an elder?
There's a place, space, condition that's created by an elder. When people sit down with you, do they feel comfortable with you? And are you able to ask them questions that oftentimes would seem confrontive, and they're more honest with you because they feel safe?
Yeah.
Okay. Exactly. So there's a space that you bring because you understand yourself more and have allowed yourself to embrace your humanity. That's given you the grace to be able to do that.
You refer to this, I don't have to be the cocky on the walkie. I don't have to be the numero uno here. I know enough and am comfortable enough with myself that I can let others have a role and almost allow them to transform. And I think that's the mindset that you're espousing here too.
I think it's the capacity to be with people. I'm in a restaurant and I watch a 6-year-old kid run around and big noise and all of that. And when I was in my 40s, it would be annoying. And when I was in my 50s, I just went quiet at my meal. And now it's like, well, you appreciate the boyness now. You appreciate life more. So when you appreciate, you can't dislike, and you can't complain about it because you're appreciating it. Gratefulness and appreciation really change the way you can deal in life.
The other big change that you talk about is understanding how death can be an ally for elders. What is it about the relationship that we have with mortality that can empower us to just live more authentically?
I think you just said it. You're going to die. Most of the people I talk to don't live their life if, not when. Big difference. Elders know when. They're going to die. And we do work to put ourselves in the more intimate relationship with death. We do a death plan. We do things about, I just made a contract with Earth Funerals where I will be turned into compost and I will be able to be compost for the trees in the Olympic National Park. And I can't imagine my cells. This is the coolest thing. This new technology, they don't add external microbes for the breakdown of the compost. It's your cells. So my cells are going to be in trees. So if you talk about a legacy, I can't be any more excited about that than I am right now. I asked a person from the death and dying trade, and where all the people are in this complaining about it or afraid of it. And he said, what about if it's like going home? And that changed everything for me. That's transformation, by the way, at that moment for me. It was like, whoa, I'm in a different state about death. So I think death allows you to live life more fully.
I'm excited for you too. I am selfishly going to ask you to come back and talk to us again because I'd love to learn a little bit more. My mom lives up in Seattle, and so that forest is gorgeous. That's the same Olympic forest that you're talking about, right?
Yes, the Hoh River. Yep. I already picked out my tree.
Oh, gosh.
Okay, I'm already there.
Well, congrats. This has been a fun conversation. I knew it would be. I want to talk to you more about all this stuff. Congrats on all of your wonderful work. What a pleasure it's been to talk with you today. Our guest is Dr. Marc Cooper. We will have links in our notes with more information about Dr. Cooper's work, his books, all of this fantastic information that he shared today. Please check back further. And please, Dr. Cooper, carry on. And we will be in touch about a future interview here.
Yeah, I would love that.
My thanks to Dr. Marc Cooper for his generous time today. Remember, Dr. Marc Cooper is author of the wonderful book, Older to Elder, The Thinking of Being a Contemporary Elder. Just a fantastic book, fantastic ideas. Thanks always to Sam Henniger and Miranda Henniger, the husband and wife team who keep us going in all the right directions. Thanks, Sam. Thanks, Miranda. Thanks to you, our wonderful audience here on radio and podcast. Please be well, be safe. Let's talk about better. The Not Old Better Show on radio and podcast. Thanks, everybody. We will see you next time.
Thanks for joining us this week on the Not Old Better Show. To find out more about all of today's stories or to view our extensive back catalog of previous shows, simply visit notold-better.com. Join us again next time as we deep dive into some of the most fascinating real-life stories from across the world, all focused on this wonderful experience of getting better, not just older. Let's talk about better. The Not Old Better Show.
Hi, one final thing. Please check out our website for this episode and all episodes at notold-better.com or subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts. And be sure to check out your local radio stations to find out more about the Not Old Better Show on podcast and radio. You can find us all over social media. Our Twitter feed is Not Old Better, and we're on Instagram at Not Old Better too. The Not Old Better Show is a production of NOBS Studios. I'm Paul Vogelsang, and I hope you'll join me again next time to talk about better. The Not Old Better Show. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week.